Hello everyone and welcome to part 6 on how to create weapon skins for Counter-Strike Global Offensive. In this tutorial we are going to continue on our previous tutorial where we talked about the patterns, and in particular we talked about two types of applying the pattern, and that is through the anodized multicolored style and the hydrographic style. In this tutorial we are going to be expanding the knowledge on patterns a little bit, and we're going to be introducing a new way of applying the pattern, and this is going to be done through the anodized airbrush style and the spray paint style. So pretty much if we scroll down in the little workshop finish guide that Valve has published on their websites, which I highly recommend to check out, we can see that there are two ways that we can apply a pattern. One is what we talked about in the last video, is applying the pattern over the UV sheet. So the game is like, okay, we have the pattern, then we're going to apply that neatly onto the UV sheet on specific areas of the gun, and that's going to be it. A downside that comes with this way of applying a pattern is that there can be noticeable seams if the UV sheet is not super properly unwrapped. So for example, in the AUG with this texture, you can't really see it here in the image, but down here at the grip there is a UV breakup. So like this part of the UV is not connected to this part of the grip at the top, which means that down here there will be quite a noticeable harsh seam. And if you don't want that, there is a way to get rid of that. So for example, here, this is the second method we can use, and this method uses triplanar mapping. So what triplanar mapping does, triplanar mapping takes this pattern, and instead of applying it on top of the UV sheet, it takes the pattern and applies it to the side of the gun, the top of the gun, and the front of the model. So it's just kind of like, okay, we have all these patterns being applied to the weapon, and now we're going to blend this together with some like not super harsh edges. And this can be really beneficial for weapons, and especially patterns that are pretty busy and like don't really rely, like if there's a little bit of soft blending it doesn't really matter. And like for that it's super beneficial because you get rid of the annoying UV sheets that sometimes have quite a lot of separated islands, and especially weapons like the USP and all that kind of stuff, they have quite a lot of separated islands, which means that your pattern would get broken up in all these different places and it looks kind of messy. So an example of this, if we go into my workshop, we can have a look at, for example, the Carnivore collection, which is generally spray paint finishes. I think there are 3 or 4 finishes that use the anodized multicolored. But in here the pattern is applied through triplanar mapping. And the best way I can show you guys this is actually in the workbench. So here we have the pattern applied through the anodized multicolored way. So this is from the previous tutorial where the pattern is simply applied over the UV sheet and the game just kind of tries to blend that together. And as you see, what happens is, sure, this one happens to line up. Generally speaking, it does not really happen, but as you can see here, this line continues, and then is cut off and it's gone. And then here there's another line running. And all these noticeable seams can be quite annoying, and especially we switch to a different weapon like, let's say, the M4A1S. Like here you can really clearly see that the texture, the pattern is being broken up. And a way to fix that is by moving to this other application method. So if we switch this to spray paint and we set this to 1.9 again, because generally you divide it by 2 and you get it in the correct scale. As you can see, we got rid of this seam completely, and that is because the game decides, okay, I'm going to apply this pattern just from the side of the gun, front, top, and then I'm going to try my best to blend the two together. And on some weapons it works really nicely. On this one it does not really work nicely because, as you can see, there's quite a lot of blending ongoing here that does not look nice. But for some weapons it works really well. So for example, if we switch back to the MP5, like here the blending works pretty nicely. Like on the back here you see a little bit of the blending, on the grip here a little bit. On the magazine it's not as nice, and on the suppressor neither, but generally speaking it does quite a good job at applying your pattern for you. And that is actually a really nice thing. So if you have a pattern such as, for example, this tiger pattern, like it does do a really good job at it, and it looks a lot nicer than having it applied through the anodized multicolored way, where you have those very thick noticeable seams. So now we have these two new pattern styles that we can choose from, which is anodized, airbrushed, and the spray paint finish. But you might be wondering what the difference is between the two, and generally speaking there are two major differences between the two. So if we switch back to anodized airbrushed, you can see we got rid of those annoying seams here. And the one thing you immediately notice is obviously that in airbrushed we have a majority of the gun being the default texture. And if we switch this to spray paint, instantly the entire gun is going to be covered in the pattern, which works really well for some patterns, but for others it might not work as well. So I don't know what pattern you are working on, but if you have a pattern, just try it out on both and see what works best for you. And the second major difference has to do with the wear. So we cannot control the alpha channel, which means that it just wears according to the way that Valve has predetermined it to wear, which means that even if there are scratches on the most factory new version, you cannot change that. So you're gonna have to live with that. But one major difference here is that, as you can see here, is we have somewhat of a black outline if we compare this to the anodized airbrush finished. Here you can see like, oh, it just kind of goes immediately into the original texture. But if we check spray paint, we can see that there's this black outline. And the reason for that is because with the wear, it takes the information that is stored in color 0 and it applies that on there kind of as a stroke, the same way as Photoshop does it with the blending option. So if we set this to, let's say, a red, we can see that all of a sudden there's this enormous red tint to the gun surrounding the edge wear. And an example of a skin that does that that's currently in the game is the MP7 Koban, and I think they also have a Galil in the game at the moment, and those are made by Marduk. And pretty much we can see that it gives this red glow to it. And this could be really cool depending on what pattern you're going for. So for example, if you have a pattern that does nuclear stuff, like with, for example, nuclear symbols and all that kind of stuff, it could be really cool to have wear that kind of shows this toxic green surrounding it. So like, just play around with it and think of like, with what idea can I use this special wear, and just try to come up with original ways to use this. The only downside to this is that you do lose your first color, which generally speaking I use as a black. So for this it does not really work. However, if you make a pattern that only uses color 1, 2, and 3 and leaves black out, then generally speaking you should be okay. But yeah, so those are pretty much the two major differences between the two finish styles. So now that you are aware of the two differences between these two finish styles, we subsequently kind of come to the end of me explaining all these finish styles, because we've covered them all except for the anodized style and the solid color style. The reason I'm not covering these is because they don't require a custom texture. They literally just require you to be in game and change the colors of color 0 to color 3, and it just applies it randomly to specific parts of the gun. And perhaps that's also the reason Valve has never accepted any community made skins in these two weapon finish styles. But yeah, this is pretty much the end of all that, which means that in the next video I won't be talking a lot about like specific details. I'll be more talking about like how to apply artwork to the gun through, for example, 3D code, so you don't have to paint directly on the UV. You can just have the 3D model open on your screen and just project the artwork onto that. Or perhaps I'll talk a little bit about the normal maps, so I'll just have to see which one I deem more important and which one I actually feel like talking about. So without further ado, I hope you like these tutorials, and I hope this has helped you quite a bit starting out in the Counter-Strike workshop. It's quite a steep learning curve, but it's definitely worth learning it, because in the end everything turns into practice and you just develop yourself as an artist, and in the end, perhaps, who knows, Valve will accept one of your submissions to the game, and that's like one of the best things that can happen. And it's a great feeling to see your own skin being used in game. So without further ado, I hope you guys have a great time. I hope you guys stay safe with all the COVID-19 stuff happening outside, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial.